Hello, my name is Dr. Liam Lanigan, and you are very welcome to English 3033, Introduction to the Study of World Literatures. I just wanted to do a couple of things right here, real quick. The first is to welcome you to the course, so welcome to the course. I'm really looking forward to working with everybody. I'm looking right now at the introduction discussion forum, and I'm really delighted to see all of your responses. I'm going to have a chance to properly read through them tomorrow afternoon, so I'm really looking forward to that. I have already detailed what the structure of the course is in terms of the units and how they break down, and I have also given you a full course schedule, so you have all of that. All I wanted to add today was just a brief little thing about collaboration, the importance of collaboration, which I didn't really mention yesterday. One of the really fundamental aspects of a successful literature course is that we work closely with and engage with the ideas of our peers and our classmates. And it's a difficult thing to do in an online course, but the discussion forums will be a big part of that, and I do want to re-emphasize the importance of engaging with other people's ideas, listening carefully to what other people say and how they respond to your ideas, and using that to build your confidence in terms of your engagement with texts. Research does show that people who engage with one another and collaborate heavily in their work achieve learning outcomes a lot better and succeed a lot more consistently in education generally. So I do want to emphasize the importance of that. That will also feature in some of your major and some of your minor assignments, where you'll be engaging with one another in terms of peer review and collaborating in other ways on Google Docs and things like that. So I want you to be used to the idea of exposing your ideas to the scrutiny of other people, and also being willing to engage with one another's ideas and to respectfully disagree with one another where necessary. Don't be afraid to do that. People respond positively to that kind of constructive engagement and exchange of ideas, and you'll be a better student, you'll be a better writer, you'll have a more interesting set of ideas for having done that. So I really do want to emphasize the importance of that. The second thing was to sort of emphasize my role as an instructor. Obviously I won't be there to give you lectures. That's probably the best thing about this course, because I talk too much, so I'm told. But my role is not to tell you what to think about these texts, or to just guide you through them. My role is to facilitate your engagement with the course materials, and to answer your questions whenever you have them, to keep you on track, to support you in any way that I can, and I'm absolutely determined to do that in any way I can. If you need to get in touch with me, if you need any help, if you feel like you're falling behind, if you're worried about anything, and if you have any cool ideas, anything like that, get in touch with me. I'm really excited to do that. That's my favorite aspect of being an instructor. Obviously I'm here to grade assessments, but I'm also here to provide feedback and hopefully help you improve and get where you want to be as a student. I'll also be developing the discussion questions for the course. I'll be providing feedback on discussion forums and stuff like that. So hopefully there'll be plenty of opportunities for me to interact with you all. But what I definitely don't want to do is to be regarded as the kind of source of knowledge that, in some sense, you need to look to what I think, so that you know what you're supposed to write and regurgitate that back so that I'll give you an A. That's absolutely not how it works, and it's definitely not how I want it to work. I won't be giving you that information anyway, but in general, what I'll do in these videos will be, at the end of a week, I'll attempt to sort of recap the main points that we've encountered, and maybe try and see how what we've done has lined up with our course objectives and the kind of things that we've been trying to achieve. So, when I do prefer ideas about how to think about a text or what sort of approach we might take to it, you're under no obligation to agree with me. I absolutely want to emphasize that. My ideas are the same as everybody else's. They're open to critique. They're flawed. They're problematic, and that's the nature of literary interaction. So, our interaction with literature and with one another about it. So that's all really important, and I wanted to emphasize it. Now, I just wanted to briefly talk about the sort of big ideas that the course deals with. So one of the things that world literature is sometimes perceived as doing is being a sort of canon of the great works of literature from across the world. Like, these are the best things that we've got as a species. And that's not what we're doing. I'm not interested in a great works of literature course here. What I'm interested in doing is thinking about what it means to read literature across cultures and across time, what it means for a text to cross over a boundary, for example, to be taken from the ancient world and read in a modern context, or to be taken from Nigeria and read in the south of the United States, or that sort of transmission, the adaptation, the translation of texts between and across cultures and across time is the stuff of world literature. It's thinking about what it means to cross over cultures, to encounter difference, and to encounter similarities as well. And those are the kinds of things that we want to do as world literature students. And that's why the units are broken down the way they are, so that Unit 1 deals with reading across time and thinking about what it means to read something ancient in a contemporary context. Then moving on to reading across cultures and what it means to adapt and translate things from one culture to another one that's maybe culturally very different. Then moving on also to reading globally and becoming global, and the idea that we might establish an understanding of literature that isn't just based on national traditions or just based on literary periods like medieval and Renaissance and early modern, but that we're reading between literary periods and between national literatures, and thinking about how those time periods and how those national literatures interact with one another. And I think that's what we should be most concerned with. So some of the questions that we might ask ourselves to begin with are, for example, what does it mean to read the Odyssey now? What does it mean to read an ancient text in a modern context? Do we have to change the way we think about a piece of literature based on our understanding of the gap between us and the people who wrote it? When we read something like the Odyssey, what are we trying to do? Are we trying to understand how ancient Greek readers would have interpreted that text? Or are we more interested in what the differences are between ourselves and those ancient Greek readers? In some ways, I think we're probably doing both, right? We are trying to discover, well, what were the values of the people who would have originally read this text? But we're also concerned with, well, what are our values? And do those influence the way that we understand and comprehend this text? And does it matter? And most importantly, and this will come up more later in Unit 1, what does it mean when we adapt an ancient text like that to the modern world? So we'll read lots of poets and playwrights and stuff who have made adaptations of the Odyssey for the modern world, and think about, well, what sort of changes do those people make? But before we get to that, we'll think about reading and interpretation of texts as a type of adaptation, so that when we read the Odyssey in the next week or two, we're not just, finding out what it really means. We're finding out, in some senses, we're adapting it, right? We're adapting it to mean what it does to us. So what we want to think consciously about is, how do our life experiences and our values and our understanding of the world influence the way that we understand and the way that we read a book like the Odyssey? And in what ways is that in tension with the text itself, right? So we'll think about that in sort of specific ways, like, you know, there are some parts of the Odyssey that maybe seem a little bit incongruous to us, like in the Calypso episode, which you'll read this week. Odysseus has been separated from his wife and his son for 20 years after the Trojan War, and he's been trapped on this island by a demigod, Calypso, and he spends all day crying, thinking about his beautiful wife at home, and worrying that maybe she's left him in the intervening time or thought that he died. Okay, but every single night he goes to bed with the person who trapped him, Calypso, the sort of demigod who has trapped him there. And that infidelity strikes a modern reader as being incongruous with his supposed longing for his wife. And at the same time, he demands of his own wife that she remain loyal and faithful to him. So as modern readers, are we to set that aside and just say, well, Greeks had different values to us? Or does it matter? Is there a sort of tension in reading across time? Do we need to adapt our understanding of the text, or do we adapt the text to our modern world, right? So we're thinking about those sorts of tensions first, and then moving on to the way that we adapt a text when poets and playwrights and so on take these things and put them in a new context. So that's kind of Unit 1, or certainly Week 1 of Unit 1, of the kind of concerns that we're dealing with, just beginning by thinking about the Odyssey not as a text frozen in time back in prehistory, but as a text that evolves and changes its meaning based on the interpretations of people in different times and different places throughout history. So we're going to begin that process of understanding how a text evolves and changes and adapts by thinking about our own personal responses to the Odyssey. So reading these first couple of episodes and asking ourselves questions about how we interpret it, and thinking about, well, okay, so I think Odysseus is, if he's committing an infidelity and that makes him a terrible person, does that change the way that we read it? Are we being influenced by our own contemporary values? Is it illegitimate to read this as a sort of anti-feminist text, since the only value that Penelope can have in the text is being loyal and being faithful, and yet that faithfulness is not required of Odysseus himself, right? So, but not that we're focusing on just that, but my point is, well, what sort of assumptions do we bring to our reading of a text, and do those things matter? Is it okay to read a text in that way? That's the first question that we're going to ask. And we'll move from there. So I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys have to say in the discussion forum and interacting with you all. I'll be in touch during the week in terms of giving feedback to your posts on the discussion forums. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, you have any issues, just please get in touch. I'm looking forward to hearing from you. Okay, bye.